Hi, and welcome to John_Silva_, your favorite streamer, today with Silva Decodes from Miruineku. Miruineku asks, how can I render like that? Smile. There was no smile there. Wow, look how pog. Look how much people love this segment. Wow. This is a pretty simple question. I'm not gonna be like spending too much on this one. Now, I'd say that the question is a bit broad, so let's find something. Let's find a brush first. Let's focus on one element so that it's not so broad. I'd say the first thing is actually getting a good texture brush that can imitate the render. One thing you need to know, spoiler alert, you're gonna get your heart broken. The reason why you probably like the way this image is rendered is not because of like the icing on the cake, aka like the texture brush and all like the details and things like that. It's mainly two things. Let me grab a different color. Actually, I should take the color wheel somewhere here so you guys can see it. Let's put it... Fuck, I don't have space. Okay, you're gonna have to deal with not seeing the color wheel then. So it's two things. Is the drawing, so the shape that the artist is using. So like the shape of the face is pretty iconic. Shape of the hair. I'm just gonna quickly like jot down some shapes here. You have the hand right there, and then you have the hood, which is pretty cool too. And then once you have that, the thing that makes the render look amazing, other than the don't get me wrong, texture and all that, we're gonna get into it in just a second. But I wanted to make double sure that you know that it's kind of like how people think that color is everything, but in reality, it's the value of the color that makes an image look good, and it's the thing that makes a color look good, or a composition of colors. So you have the hood, you have the hair. Everything is pretty iconic looking in style, so it's clear to see, and the proportions of each shape are interesting. All right, so the same is with then the lips, pretty big, and then you have the shape of the nose. Now I'd say the facial features are really iconic. It's the same with everything else, but it's even more emphasized in the facial features. All right, so you have kind of like this going on, and the same is with the eyes. I'm just gonna do it loosely because I don't want the video to be, or the highlight to be like an hour long. So you have that, and then you have the eye, kind of like this. All right. Okay, so we got all the basic essential shapes down. This is super important. And now the second most important thing that helps the render look really good is lighting. So the lighting is really awesome. Let's do a section of this. Well, let's do the face. Why not? All right. So I'm gonna kind of like disregard everything else and just focus on the face for the sake of speed. But I'll just add a little something there on the outside. All right. So the mood, the light, the way the light is being portrayed right now enhances the mood, which enhances the render. Now I'm using a brush like this. You can use any scratchy, chalky looking brush to achieve the same look. I will show you how to get very close results. But This rendering is a building up process. You can't just jump into it. So, by the way, chat, if you have any questions while I'm explaining this, please feel free to ask, you know, because I am taking a look at the chat. If there's anything in particular, I will answer. So first thing is where is the light coming from and where are we dividing the light? So it's clearly on the eyes. This is like really important. And then the face is pretty clear. So we're gonna separate, I mean the jaw area. So we're gonna separate that. Right now I'm focusing on light and shadow, and that's it. Like what is the shadow sculpting, and what is also the light, and eventually the highlights, what are they sculpting as well, or like defining. So I'm just gonna quickly set that up, and now I'm gonna focus on so at this point you can focus on either thing, highlights or ambient occlusion shadows. Ambient occlusion shadows is when, like, the creases of the mouth, the nostrils, it's areas where light has really big difficulty getting into. So like the corner of your fingers, wrinkles, that sort of stuff. You can pick whichever to go from there. I usually like to do the shadows, so I'm gonna do that first, but it's really up to you what you pick. So I'm gonna look at the crease of the eyes here. I'm paying attention to the deepest shadows right there. Bam, bam, bam. Also, when you are doing what you did in the beginning with the shapes, don't disregard that at this point. Always keep in mind the shape of the shadow or the shape of the light that you're drawing on the character. It's really, really, really important that you don't forget about that, because usually when people go into render, you kind of like almost go into autopilot mode sort of thing. It's really important that you know the shape of the shadow that you're drawing or the shape of the light. And if you're using reference, notice that in the pictures of your references, right? I'm gonna skip the eyes here for now. Now let's do the nostrils here. I forgot to do the shadows on the nose, but I'll get to that in a second. Corner of the lips right there. And the crease, the same as like with the lower part there. You have no preference of order when doing ambient occlusion or shadows of a character. I do. I said it moments ago, which is I prefer to start with at this point I like to do the ambient occlusion shadows first, and I like to add the highlights last usually, but honestly it always changes a little bit depending on what I'm painting. But I'd say 7-8 times out of 10 it's ambient occlusion shadows. All right, so let's add that. Actually, I'm gonna take a step back because I forgot to add the little, like, the shadow on the nose, which is like pretty important. Right there. Bam, bam, bam. Done. I'm actually going to add some here too on the cheek. I like to squint my eyes to see easier the shape of the shadows. There's two different kinds of shadows as well that I should quickly mention, because render is a lot about the lighting. Again, like I said, shape, lighting, and then the very last thing is going to be texture, which we'll get to. Right now we're in the lighting phase. There's two types of shadow. There's a shadow being cast from the light source, and then there's form shadow, which is when the surface of a shape turns away from the light source. So like the cheek here on the side is turning away. You're not going to have a cast shadow there, but you are going to have a darker like outline there on the cheek, because, well, again, it's turning away from the light source. Therefore, the light can't really get in there, or at least from the main this main light source. So I'm gonna do it here too. Actually, it's a bit warm. There's a bit of a brown color in there. Same here, same there. I'm gonna stop there for now. So I'm not seeing anything else really urgent to add. So I'm gonna go and do my highlights. And lastly, I'm gonna focus on the form light. So I like to do the form light at the very last, because I consider form light a little bit like a detail, not as important. It is important, but out of all of the shadows and lights, I consider that like to be the very last. So let's get light. Oh no. Hello, good caller. Are you here? Oh, there you go. It's actually a bit more purple. All right, it's good enough. How are you rotating your brush? And can you do that in Clip Studio Paint? I'm rotating my brush because I have a 6D art pen. It's really expensive. Wacom doesn't really publicize it, but if I rotate it like this, it rotates in Photoshop if you enable the option to do that. I don't know if you can do it in Clip Studio Paint. No, I don't know. So I'm gonna do the cheek first, because the cheek and the nose are the things that I see being really really emphasized here. Those are like the two main ones, including we'll get to the hair, but as far as face goes, it's these areas here. Okay, and for the nose kind of like goes like this, and then he does. We'll get to the texture, to the technique after like the foundation is applied. And then we have the eyes, kind of like that. Let's do the eyes blue. There you go. Bam, bam, bam. We're good. Okay, so I'm just gonna clean it up a little bit, and I'm going over with the multiply because I want my colors to be a little bit more blue, so it matches more the ambient going on here. There you go. I'm just using it again. I made a multiply layer on top of everything, picked the color blue, and I just apply it over. I will erase it a little bit here on the. No, it's fine. All right. Oh, whoops. There you go. So continuing, I'm just gonna refine a little bit more the highlights here because there's like brighter lights here and there. Same on the nose, and I'm gonna stop with the. As far as highlight goes, I'm gonna stop it here. Of course, there's like still on the. There's still like light on the other areas, but for the sake of keeping the video as short as possible, I'm gonna disregard the rest. I will add the hair though. I feel like in the very least, because the hair is like in front of the face, so I feel like I should add it just for effect. All right, that's good enough for now. Okay, so now the form light, which is both the shadow and light inside. How can I explain this? Form light is the indirect light. If only I knew English for these. It's the indirect light for hitting the shapes, hitting the fucking, like in this case it's a face, but it could be literally anything else. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm applying the shadow first. Once again, because I prefer doing shadows, you can start with the lighter parts. So like the creases of the cheeks right next to the nose, I'm adding those. Again, I'm not worrying too much about the technique yet. I'm just focusing on, well, making the picture. I'm not focusing, and I would not suggest you to focus on like making all of the cool tricks and textures and all that. That's for the very end. But this is the most important part of the quote unquote render. I don't know how much I can emphasize that, how important it is, because a lot of people like renders of things, but they don't realize what makes it actually good. Because it's the whole icing on the cake. You see a cake looking really pretty and maybe even tasty, but then you take a bite on the inside and might be actually gross. You never know. But it's just an appearance thing. And that's what texture does. Texture is like, oh, look at me, I like fucking look awesome. And texture is awesome, don't get me wrong. You can make an image look really fucking cool, like here. But ultimately, all of the things I'm mentioning right now is what's gonna make the like a render good or not, or interesting or not, depending on how you tackle it. So I'm adding, as you can see, I'm just going around looking at the areas where the face turns away from the main light source. And she has her mouth open, so let's do that. All right, and now I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna focus on the light where either the main light source or ambient light, which is indirect light, hits parts of her face. Whether it depends on whether it's that part of the face is pointing towards a light source or not, indirectly, obviously. Because if it was fully pointing at, if there was nothing blocking the light and it was pointing at the light source, then it would be lit, right? It wouldn't be just a little brighter. It would be a lot brighter, obviously. So let's go here. There's a little bit here on the cheekbone. He also does this warmer blue. This is, I would consider that to be something you do later. There's a really saturated blue here. That's gonna be for later when we'll do the texture and all that. So let's actually make this a little more blue. And like, that's good. On the lips, already done that. Here on the chin, on the top of the chin. Yeah, this is pretty much the ambient light source reaching the tops, the top parts of her face. What else? Oh, the nose. Almost forgot. Where can I find your brushes, John? Okay, I'll answer that after I'm done with this, because I guess it is kind of relevant. You can get this specific brush in my Discord under the art share, the one I'm using right now. You can find that there. But if it's my smudge brushes, then you can go to my DeviantArt. All right, so the top of the nose here. Bam, bam, bam. I guess I'll do the hair part here because it's also in front of the face, but I won't do anything else. And I'd say these are the main things that make the render. You see the value are pretty close, and if I make the image really, really small like that, then you're seeing the similarities, and you can still tell what kind of render it is. And that's the main reason why I wanted to make sure that we cover the base, I guess bases work. Oh, I almost forgot. Inside of the shadow here, there's a little bit of light that the artist added in there. So I'm gonna do the same here and here, just a little bit like that, and now for the icing of the cake, the thing that you want me to, or the thing that most of you probably want to know right away, is how to do the damn textures and all that. So once, the reason why I needed to have a base, wait, hold on, I forgot her lips. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I shouldn't do it, but I kind of want to do it, so I'm gonna do it because I want to. Just a little bit, just a little bit the lips. There you go. That's not the right color, but there you go. That's better. So once you have the base, that's when I would recommend doing all the bells and whistles and all that. I also forgot the inner corner of her eye there. So there's two things he does. First of all is you can grab whatever brush for this one, but I would, I would suggest grabbing something that's kind of like granular looking. So what I have right now actually works well, but I'm going to show you a different brush that you can get anywhere, honestly. This is perfect. Something that looks like kind of scratchy or whatever will be fine. But I'd say at some point the artist kind of goes in and does. He or she. I don't know if it's a he or she, but the artist still follows the form, all of the principles he or she set up. Except now it's to make the image pretty. So I'm gonna go around here and do the scratchy thing and clean it up in some areas. Again, respecting all of the work you've done so far. You'll make the image, can make the image small and like almost like a pencil is how I would recommend you to go around and do this. All right. I'll be honest with you, this is a pretty loaded question because it's how broad it is. There's things I'm leaving out like edge control, like just knowing how to, like the usual painting things, the techniques that you would focus on. But there's a lot of edge control going on here. Some areas are on purpose heavily textured, while some areas are like softer and out of focus. That's something I can't teach you within this 20 or so minute answer. That's something you're gonna have to, you know, maybe ask again. But I can't cover that. Otherwise, this is gonna be an hour. So I'm just going around in the main areas and adding almost like a pencil, following the form. You add textures. Now, following the form, I will just touch on this for a minute. Following the form is painting along a surface. Imagine that this is 3D, right? So you're painting in a conscious direction. You're doing the textures in a conscious direction. I'm not just going in here and like blah 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 blah, blah, like, you know, like I'm going along. Imagine that you're passing your hand over, right? What do you feel? Like, what is the curvature? How deep or how flat does it feel to the touch or to your imaginative touch, right? So it's not random. And I can tell that the artist didn't do it randomly as well. So you can just go around, do exactly that. Same for here. Like you even see some brush strokes going across there. Like on the chin, you see this happening. That's the artist. And I say most people should do that. Adding this kind of texture really helps with the form. It helps with the look overall. But you'll get better at this. Don't worry if you don't get it at first or at second or third or 50th time. Just keep at it. At some point you'll get it. So all I'm doing is, again, I'm respecting the work I already put in, and I'm just adding this kind of scratchy texture to it using the same brush. You can use whatever other brush you want, but for this one is in particular something granular, something scratchy like will do the job just fine. All right, so can do that. And the same is with like inside of the eyes here. And then last thing I will do is so that's the texture part. Clap it up, boys. The very last thing is the blue tint that he has around the the face. I'm just gonna get something soft. It doesn't really, the sketch brush that I had previously is perfectly fine. So I'm gonna make a layer. Let's go with linear dodge. So linear dodge, and you make a really dark color. Let's put it here in the center. So linear dodge layer, put it in a really dark color and saturate it, and you just go around and do that. Honestly, you can use that. You can use overlay. You can use anything. Honestly, there's multiple ways to get the same result. I don't know which one was that the artist used, but yeah. So new layer on top, and probably overlay. To be honest, let's try overlay. Actually, overlay and make it brighter. Yeah, I'd say I think overlay works well. It's pretty close. And that's it. That concludes this question of Silva Decodes. Once again, if you like this segment, feel free to participate. We do these once. We do these at least once a month. If not more, probably more. Usually it's more. And all you gotta do is be here when I do it. I don't really have a schedule for it. However, if you are a sub, you can ask questions ahead of time. So if you're not going to be here, but you want your answer to be, your question to be answered, don't worry. Just join our Discord, post your question in the Silva Decodes sub-only room, and all questions are pretty much recorded and posted in the playlist that probably most of you already know of. So, see you on the next one. Bye-bye.